You know that feeling of always chasing money, but it stubbornly slips through your fingers like fine sand? It is like living on a hamster wheel, constant movement, sweat on your forehead, but always in the same place. It turns out that maybe the problem is not earning more, but relating better to what we already have. If you desire to cultivate a life with more lightness and sophistication, learning about minimalism and elegance in a serene and inspiring way, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and leave your like. I was organizing my walnut desk yesterday when I found an old notebook. There were written the first lessons my grandmother taught me about the Japanese art of managing money with elegance. She was the one who showed me that true wealth is not what you display, but what you can keep in silence. My grandmother lived through World War II, so she knew the value of the essential. She told me that in the difficult post-war years, the most prosperous Japanese families were not those who showed off, but those who knew how to preserve resources with silent discipline. "Naomi-chan," she would say while folding fabrics with surgical precision, "well cared for money is like a well-watered garden. It grows in silence, but everyone sees the beauty." Curiously, since I adopted more rigorous minimalist habits, I have never had such clarity about my resources. Therefore, I have never been so prosperous. Not by chance. There is a silent relationship between minimalism and abundance that few discover. 1. The philosophy. Buy once. For years, I was a prisoner of the cheap product trap. I would buy the most affordable laptop and it would fry while editing videos. I chose cheap clothes that faded on the second wash. My father, with his experience managing restaurants, always said, "Cheap turns out expensive, and expensive poorly chosen turns out very expensive." Studies show that investing in quality items can save thousands of dollars over the years. The average consumer spends 35% more money throughout life, buying low-quality products repeatedly. Today, my wardrobe consists of 33 carefully chosen pieces. Yes, since the 2008 crisis, I have maintained this number. I prefer 3 quality linen blouses, which have been with me for 5 years and still look new, than 15 that embarrass me in months. My walnut dining table cost the equivalent of 10 medium-density fiberboard tables. 10 years later, it is more beautiful. The wood has gained personality, some marks of time that tell our story. My friends' medium-density fiberboard tables have already been replaced 2 or 3 times. When you buy thinking in decades, not in promotions, you automatically spend less and live better. 2. The silence of abundance. In Japan, the most prosperous people often live simply, avoid unnecessary expenses, and focus on stability instead of ostentation. True wealth whispers with elegance. I visited the home of an extremely successful Japanese businesswoman in Tokyo. I expected ostentation, but discovered refined simplicity. Small house, functional light wood furniture, minimalist indoor garden, but each piece chosen with impeccable criteria. Silent luxury, invisible quality. The most elegant woman I know drives a 10-year-old impeccably maintained car, but has reserves that would sustain her family for 2 years. She wears the same 7 jewels for decades, each one with history, but can choose not to work when she wants. True financial sophistication is the freedom to choose, not the obligation to impress. It is being able to say no to opportunities that do not make sense, even if they are financially attractive. The Japanese concept that expresses regret for waste permeates this philosophy. Real abundance manifests in inner peace, not in external accumulation. 3. The art of saying no. We grew up believing that being polite means always saying yes. Especially we women were taught that denying something is synonymous with bad manners. But each yes is a disguised no to everything else. When I accept to have lunch with someone who always complains but never takes action to change, I am saying no to the time I could use learning something new. When I buy something on impulse, I am denying resources for my real goals. I learned this the most painful way, when I lost everything in the financial crisis. At that time, I said yes to everything. Investments I did not understand, expenses to impress people, commitments that left me exhausted. Today, I have a system to evaluate each opportunity. Does this bring me closer to the person I want to be? Does it contribute to my goals? Does it add beauty or growth to my life? If the answer is no to these 3 questions, my answer is also no. Saying no is an act of self-love disguised as bad manners. 4. The obsession, financial education. I admit, I have an obsession. It is not shoes or exotic trips. It is learning about money, personal growth, and the art of living well with intention. People who read 7 or more books per year are 122% more likely to become millionaires, according to research by socioeconomist Randall Bell. But it is not just any reading. It is applied knowledge that transforms into conscious action. Every obsession consumes vital energy. The question is, does your current obsession build or destroy your life? If you have time to memorize details of celebrities' lives, you have time to understand how to multiply your resources. Transforming a destructive obsession into a constructive one can completely change your financial trajectory. I know a woman who traded her addiction to series for investment podcasts during her commute to work. In 2 years, she got out of the red and created a consistent reserve. Channeling mental energy to something that elevates us is perhaps the smartest decision we can make. 5. Living one step below your means. An architect friend got a promotion with a 40% higher salary, but maintained exactly the same standard of living. All the increase was directed to investments. In 6 months, she built a reserve that would have taken years before. This is the strategy that the Japanese call living intentionally below your possibilities, not out of scarcity, but out of internal abundance. I have practiced this since the 2008 crisis. When my income recovered, I resisted the temptation to return to the previous standard. The difference all went to investments and a reserve that gives me deep tranquility. Elegance lies in resisting lifestyle inflation, not because you cannot raise your standard, but because you consciously choose not to do so until your investments sustain this new level without compromising security. Living one step below creates a safety margin more valuable than any status object. 6. The elegant obvious. Simple investments. In 2021, influenced by conversations about cryptocurrencies that were going to the moon, I invested a considerable amount in digital coins with dog names. I thought I was smarter than traditional investors. The result? I lost 70% of the value when the bubble burst. Meanwhile, my boring investments in index funds continued to grow consistently. Data shows that index funds outperform 90% of professional managers over 15 years. Simplicity beats complexity in most cases. Warren Buffett recommends index funds for 90% of people. Financial sophistication is not in complicating, but in mastering the basics with elegance. It is more refined to have a simple strategy that works than a complex one that fails. Today, my strategy fits on one page: low-cost index funds, some real estate investments, small percentage in stocks I genuinely understand, and emergency reserve in fixed income. 7. The rule of one category at a time. When I started practicing detachment, I tried to organize the entire house simultaneously. Result? Absolute chaos. Clothes scattered around the room, papers flying through the living room, drawers open like lost mouths, Kenji asking if we had been robbed. It was a refinedly orchestrated disaster. The scene reminded me of a friend who, desperate to organize her finances, canceled all subscriptions, created 15 different spreadsheets, started 3 investment courses, and tried to implement 4 budget methods simultaneously. In 2 weeks, she had given up everything and returned to the previous chaos, only more stressed. Minimalism taught me something fundamental. Focus on one area at a time, like gardening. You do not plant all the seeds on the same day expecting the garden to flourish without individual care. If your finances are confused, choose only one aspect to organize for 3 months. Maybe it is cataloging and canceling unnecessary subscriptions. Maybe creating a simple budget using only 4 basic categories. Maybe developing an additional income source, focusing on a skill you already possess. I apply this religiously. 3 months to master one financial aspect, then move to the next. In the first quarter of 2023, I focused exclusively on reducing superfluous expenses. I discovered I was paying for 7 streaming platforms I barely used and a flower delivery app I had completely forgotten. The rush to transform everything at once is the enemy of elegance. As my grandmother used to say, Haste is the grandmother of poverty. 8. The intentional spending, 3-jar system. My grandmother kept 3 ceramic jars in the kitchen, one for daily needs, one for family growth, and one to help neighbors in difficulty. It was a physical version of what we now call budgeting, but with the wisdom of someone who survived scarcity. I adapted this philosophy by dividing my expenses into 3 categories: essentials, pleasure, and future. Essentials include housing, quality food, and transportation. Pleasure encompasses trips chosen with purpose, books that expand my mind, special teas that transform common mornings into rituals. Future represents investments and a reserve that allows me to sleep peacefully. Every Friday, during my financial ritual, I divide my resources among these 3 purposes, with the same ceremony with which she separated the coins. This method, created in 1904 by journalist Hani Motoko, uses manual writing to create emotional connection with money. If 95% of my money goes to essentials, it means that either I have many false essentials or I need to increase my income. If too much goes to pleasure and nothing to the future, I know exactly where to make adjustments. Financial elegance lies in being honest about priorities. I prefer to admit that I like quality tea. I have 5 varieties that I buy directly from Japanese producers and consciously invest in this small daily joy. 9. The strength of right connections. Years ago, I worked alone in my design studio, isolated and strangely stagnant. I had the illusion that independence meant doing everything alone. What a mistake. Isolation is the enemy of prosperity. Prosperous people cultivate strategic relationships with other successful individuals who inspire and elevate them. Today, I participate in a group of women entrepreneurs that meets monthly. All are more successful than me in different areas. One is a real estate investment specialist. Another built an online business from scratch. It is not competition. It is mutual inspiration. These meetings transformed my perspective on money. I discovered investment strategies I would never have known alone. Learned about passive income sources I never imagined existed. You become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. This is not just motivational phrase. It is proven mathematical reality. Choose this average carefully. 10. The 90-day ritual. Every 3 months, I perform a sacred ritual. I review my finances with the same delicacy with which I organize my closet. I choose a Saturday morning, prepare green tea in my favorite bowl, and spread financial documents on the walnut table. It is not just numerical analysis. It is an intimate meeting with myself, honest conversation about how I am using my resources. This review prevents me from living on financial autopilot. It is impressive how unnecessary expenses infiltrate when we do not pay attention. That magazine subscription I no longer read. The streaming service I forgot I had. During these rituals, I discovered interesting patterns. I always spend more in March. Back to school period, energy renewal. I spend less in July. Introspective month when I prefer to stay home. Read books I already have. 3 months is enough time to see real results, but short enough to maintain focus. 11. The minimalism of time. I discovered that genuine free time is the greatest luxury. Not time occupied with empty entertainment, but time truly free to consciously choose each moment. I started calculating my real hourly rate. Dividing net income by hours actually worked. Then, I questioned each purchase in terms of life hours. Is it worth working 8 hours for a bag I will use 3 times? The math is brutal, but liberating. When you visualize purchases in terms of invested lifetime, priorities naturally reorganize. A client worked 10 hours daily at a job she hated to maintain a lifestyle that included expensive gym membership, attended twice a month, and sophisticated restaurants, where she pretended to like the food. When she did the real math, she discovered she was selling 60% of her life to sustain a style that did not make her happy. Temporal minimalism means being selective with commitments that steal time without adding real value. 12. The 77% Law. Research by author Thomas Corley shows that financially successful people watch television less than 1 hour per day, while 77% of people with financial difficulties spend more than 1 hour consuming content. The difference is not only in time, but in what they do with it. I discovered this practically when my son Kenji entered university. In those transition months, empty house, altered routines, I spent entire afternoons browsing social media, watching decoration videos that only left me dissatisfied with my own house. The more I consumed content about perfect life, the more my reality seemed inadequate. Therefore, I created a personal rule inspired by the Japanese concept of one moment, one encounter. For each hour of digital consumption, I need to create something for 1 hour before. It can be writing, cooking with seasonal ingredients, organizing a room in the house, or simply preparing tea with intention to be present. The result was revealing. Prosperous people build more than they consume. They read to apply knowledge, not to escape reality. Accumulating information without purpose is as harmful as accumulating objects. The difference is that mental clutter does not appear in photos. 13. The wisdom of eating until 80% full. There is a Japanese principle that means eating until you are 80% satisfied, stopping before complete satiety. My grandmother practiced this and lived to 94 years with admirable health. I applied this philosophy to finances with transformative results. Instead of spending everything I earn, I always maintain 20% margin. I live with 80% of my income and invest the other 20%. This space functions as financial breathing. When unexpected opportunity arises, course, trip, investment, I have available resources without needing to go into debt. The practice of financial moderation eliminates the anxiety of living on the edge. When you know you are living below your means by choice, each expense becomes more conscious. A doctor friend applied this to all aspects, schedules 80% of capacity for unforeseen events, uses 80% of computer space, plans 80% of weekend activities. The result is life with more fluidity and less stress. These habits are not rigid rules imposed from outside, but gentle invitations to rethink your relationship with money in a more elegant and sustainable way. As my grandmother used to say, well cared for money takes care of you in silence. Each principle can be adapted to your reality. The important thing is not to apply everything perfectly, but to consciously choose what resonates with who you want to become. Financial minimalism is not about deprivation. It is about clarity, intention, and the elegance of living well with what really matters. When you stop chasing more and start taking better care of what you already have, something magical happens. Enough reveals itself abundant, and abundance becomes silently prosperous. If this video resonated with you, if these reflections awakened something in your heart that wants to live with more lightness and intention, leave your like and subscribe to the channel. Here at Minimal Charm, we share together the path to a more elegant life, where less is always more, and what truly matters has space to flourish in silence. Less noise, more abundance. Comment which of these habits made the most sense for your life. I love reading your reflections.